welcome back to my channel. Welcome me back to my channel, and you. Welcome to us all. I'm Erica, and I have not been here in a while. Well, we're going to talk about why today and what the plan is going forward, and then we're going to talk about some of the things that I've been reading in the last few weeks here. So when we last spoke, I believe I told you I was going to go on a hiatus because I had like an injury at the time. Funny, so I actually had the same injury in both wrists, but they don't generally become a problem at the same time. So first I had one wrist pose the problem, and then I had the other wrist pose the problem. That went on for several months. I just finally, I'm back to normal in the past, I don't know, maybe 3 months or so. But at the same time, last winter, I started a new job. And so that was completely crazy with things like just learning my new role, onboarding into a new company, and it took a lot of time. My new role took a lot of time. I was working well over 50 hours every week for, gosh, up until just recently, frankly, within the last couple of weeks, that's stopped. I've got some projects that finally stopped, so I'm back to a much more normal or I should say desirable amount of work, right? I don't particularly want to work that many hours per week if I don't have to. So I'm much closer now to 40 hours per week than I have been, well, in the past year or so. So I felt like finally, since not injured anymore, back to having normal amounts of time for myself and able to get to preferred way of how I would schedule my day and my week and all these things. So I'm like, you know what? I really want to get back to making videos. So here I am. That's kind of the Cliff's Notes version of why I've been gone. I really didn't intend to be away that long, but man, let me tell you, work was just completely ridiculous. This past year flew by, and now here we are, almost at the end of 2024. So what I'm planning to do going forward, because I do have a much more demanding schedule at this point, so it kind of makes filming difficult. So I'm not going to be able to do the kind of output that I would prefer as far as videos, but I am going to be a lot more present than I have been, which isn't hard. The bar is in hell for that. So that's the plan at the moment. I would say probably ideally I would like every week or two to be able to put out at least one video in that time. So that's the current plan. I've got some videos planned for the next couple weeks coming up. So there should be new content coming from me. For all of those who are returning viewers who have hung with me all this time, waiting with bated breath for me to return, here I am. Thank you so much for coming back to my channel. For anyone new, welcome, and what a weird way for us to meet each other, right? But I'm not normally I was gonna say I'm not normally this weird, but you know what? I'm kind of a weird person, so I can't really promise that. But I hope that you're here and open-minded, willing to see, if maybe you're gonna like what I have to talk about. I hope so. I really miss talking about books. I will be real. Although it is weird to be back and talking to myself in a camera in my house. It's a little weird with my cat staring at me. I kind of forgot about that, but it's like riding a bicycle. We'll get right back on it. So what have I been reading? I'm not going to go into what I've been reading the entire year, because actually I do have some plans to talk about what I thought about books that I read this year. That's for another video. What I'm going to do in this video is just talk about what I've read in the past 4 to 5 weeks or so. It's just a little kind of a wrap up. We'll call it a November and partial December wrap up. I think that would be a perfectly fine way to start, and then I'll talk about kind of what I'm reading right now. What I'm in the middle of. I'm in the middle of several books right now. Things have been getting out of hand in that way. I didn't used to be someone who would read multiple books at once. Certainly not more than 3, but that is different now, and I am in the middle of multiple books at once, and it's been that way for most of the year, and it's just what it is, I guess. So I'm going to talk about the books that I've read. I'm going to go just like I always have, kind of like worst, and then end with my best book that I had. So that's kind of the plan. So let me grab a couple of them. Let me actually grab my little phone here, because I've got a little list on my phone, because I want to make sure that I know where we're going to start. Bear with me as I'm looking down. I'm looking at my phone. Okay, first book. Let me scoot over just a little bit, because I'm going to put up the cover right here, right? First, I'm going to get some slack for this, and I know that I am, because I feel like this is the book I'm about to throw up here. There's got to be a better way to say that. But the book that I'm about to put here and talk about is it's a book that's very popular. And so once again, a disclaimer that I feel like we all have to do. Any book that I hated, it's not a judgment on the people who did not hate these books, okay? Books, we all have different tastes. And the first books I'm going to start with were not for me. But it's totally cool if they were for you and you really liked them. Like, that's awesome. We all like different things, and that's okay. Having said that, the first book that I didn't like. And the ones that I DNF'd, honestly, they're in no particular order. This one is Don't Spell Treason, or Can't Spell Treason without the T. I read it on ebook, so that's why I don't have it in front of me. Yeah, Can't Spell Treason without T. I know that this is a very popular book, and I understand the appeal of it. It, you know, obviously came at the right time with cozy fantasy kind of having its moment in the sun where everyone wants to read cozy stuff, and like, look, I'm right there with you. I really enjoyed Legends and Lattes, and I like other feel-good, you know, lighthearted things. I like them for palate cleansers or if I'm reading before I go to bed. And so this one being super popular, I was really interested to pick it up and see if I would like it. I made it about 50% of the way in. That was as far as I could make it. I didn't particularly like either of the main characters, although I liked the mage better than the one who was like the warrior or whatever. But I didn't like them. I didn't like them as a couple. I thought they were mean to each other. I liked some of the side characters. I thought they were interesting, but I found myself just annoyed or uninvested by the two main characters. Not only that, I found that some of the conflict in this story was purely based on these main characters simply failing to communicate with each other, which is like a huge pet peeve of mine when an author or in any story, whether it's like a book or a show or movie or whatever, when the people who are writing it have decided that the conflict will arise because these characters can't just have a simple conversation with each other, I find that very annoying. Like, I find that very annoying, and that's how I felt a lot of the problems in this book were coming, like where they were coming from was the two main characters had just had some conversations with each other. We really wouldn't have had any conflict, but whatever. I found that annoying, and I didn't like the main characters, so I ended up DNFing this. It was either around the 50% mark, maybe a little bit more than that. It was not for me, unfortunately. I wanted to like it, I really did, especially because there's like a sequel, which I think, what is it? It's like A Pirate's Life for Tea or something like that, and I've come to realize I'm like really obsessed with pirate fantasy stuff, so oh well, won't be reading that. Don't plan to ever finish this. So that was one of my DNFs. What is my next DNF? Okay. For the next DNFs that I've got, they're all physical copies. And unfortunately, they look really cool. So I'm like really not happy that I had to DNF them. Let me start grabbing. Okay. The Hurricane Wars. Man, look at how good. Look how good this looks. Do I judge books by their cover? Yes. And I really wanted this to be good because this cover is so beautiful. It's not that it was bad, and I shouldn't say that it was. It just wasn't for me. I didn't get that far into it. I got a few chapters in, and I realized this writing is just not working for me. And if I'm not feeling like I can go along with the writing style, then that will ruin a book for me. I don't need something to be like perfect prose or anything like that, but it can't be writing that annoys me. Unfortunately, this writing annoyed me, so I had to put it down. I don't think it's a bad book in general. There's very few books that I think are like objectively bad, because it's the point, right? Art, subjective, whatever. So I don't think this book is bad. The writing just wasn't going to work for me. So I've learned how to cut my losses and put books down that I'm feeling that way pretty upfront, and because I can't think of any book where I've ever had that feeling and kept reading and changed my mind about it at some point. So I'm like, at this point, I'm just going to cut my losses. The premise might sound interesting, but if the writing isn't working for me, then I'm not going to force myself to be annoyed by what's gonna happen as my experience in reading the rest of the book. All right, what's the next one? Okay, once again, awesome looking cover. Okay, really is. Loved it. Looks kind of metal. Hated the writing in this. Hated the writing style. Didn't get that far. I couldn't do it. And so, no, that's all that I have to say about this one. The writing wasn't for me. I couldn't even tell you what it was about because I didn't get that far, because it was immediately apparent to me. This next one I actually just DNF'd this morning. I thought it was so the Feybound, right? By, oh god, I know people were talking about this one so much, and it's very popular, and I got a beautiful copy of it. This is the Fairy Loot edition. I got 5 pages in, and the prologue was interesting, and I was like, okay, this has a lot of potential. I was drawn in by the prologue. There's gonna be like humans and elves and fairies and, I don't know, maybe a faction war or something. I have no idea. 5 pages in. So the author used the word lover multiple times instead of using, like, I don't know, girlfriend or partner or whatever. When I tell you, using the word lover just gives me, I feel like it's very cringy, like, I don't know, some kind of like out of the 80s, like yuppie language, like weird, don't like it. So I couldn't. Not only that, but the author, within just the first few pages, started to like info dump about the world, and I really don't like info dumping. I would prefer to have just like world building naturally happen instead of an author being like, bleh, here's all of my information about my world that I'm writing in. So I didn't like that, and combined with how the writing was already, I just felt like I wasn't gonna be, I was not gonna be compatible with what this author was trying to deliver, right? So cut my losses real early on this, and I'm not gonna continue, which really sucks too, because actually, so I'm doing like Reddit fantasy bingo, and one of the squares for this year is romantasy, and I was gonna use this for that square, but now I have to find something else, so well, all of these homes are going to be fine. All these books are going to be going to a good home. One of my friends, she usually really, like, she likes to read any books that I'm willing to pass on to her, because she prefers to not spend a bunch of money on books, and who can blame her? So actually this year, I should say, so my buying, I've been pretty selective this year, really only buying like special editions of things. Like you can see behind me, I've got like the Dandelion series up here. I bought special edition from Broken Binding. But so I bought books this year, but it's really only been special editions of books with only a handful of exceptions to that. So I am disappointed that those special editions I just talked about did not work, but my friend is going to be very happy to get some special editions so that she can read them. Now, let's talk about the books that I actually finished. And you know what? I can say of the books I actually finished, I generally really liked them. So these are all rated like 3.5 stars and up. So, I mean, not too bad, right? Not too bad as far as for what I actually finished. Let me take a quick look here because there is one more ebook. Yeah, that makes sense. So now we're going to go in order from, you know, lowest to highest because I like to end on the high note with the book that I thought was the best. So I read The Christmas Appeal, and you know what? This was fun. This is super short. I don't even know how many pages it is. It's like 200 pages. If you've read Janice Hallett, at least with The Appeal, because that's the only other one that I've read by her, it's there's a lot of pages where it's like emails or like text conversations, so it's very fast to read her books. So this one, I don't know, I read it in just a couple hours. It really didn't take that long. Very short little mystery. And you know what? I enjoyed it. I would say 3.5 stars. Didn't enjoy it as much as The Appeal, but I mean, it's a much shorter book than The Appeal. It wasn't really intended to be that involved, and I feel like it delivered on what it was trying to do, and I enjoyed my time. So if you like Janice Hallett, then I would say you should give this one a try because it was a pretty enjoyable, very short read. I read it as a palate cleanser, and it did what I wanted it to do. And I have a couple other books still like on my TBR that I own from Janice Hallett. I've got the Twyford Code, and then The Mysterious Case of the Alberton Angels. I have those two. I know she's got a third one that I haven't read, and I can't remember the name of it right now. But I've heard mixed reviews on that one, so I'm not sure. Probably borrow that one from the library rather than like buying it outright, just to see how I feel about it. So I just finished this one within the last couple days, and I really enjoyed it. This is Goblin Emperor by Catherine Addison, and this is an awesome edition, right? This is the Broken Binding edition. I just really love the foiling. It's super pretty, and that's what's most important about books, right? But no, I really liked this. I could see why. It's funny because as I was reading this, like there's some violence and some dark things going on in here, but I've seen so many people describe this book as kind of like a cozy or a comforting feeling book, and I can really understand why. You know, the main character is like thrown into this situation of you know, going to the court, and that would be like a royal court, not like the criminal justice system. So the main character we follow is like the goblin. Well, he's an emperor who happens to be part goblin. And this was another one that actually I've been wanting to read it for quite a while, but it's one of my Reddit fantasy bingo books. So I read this one for the square. I think it's you have to have a book with a main or a character or a main character that's like a goblin or maybe an orc or troll. So the main character here being half goblin is a big part of the storyline. So I was glad to be able to put this on my bingo board. But the main character ends up he's the Goblin Emperor, and we're following him, and he's having you know, some challenges adjusting to this court that he's never been in before, but now he's like in charge of this country. And there's some adjustment going on while he gets there, I think probably understandably, but more so for him because he's spent pretty much his entire life up until this point where he becomes the emperor in a very isolated living situation. So he's socially adjusting, and at the same time he's adjusting to being in charge of everyone and figuring out who he can trust, and the politics, essentially learning about what exactly is going on, all the different factions and the issues that the country is facing. But there was so much hope and just really positive messaging, I think, in this book. The main character, despite all of the challenges that he's faced and what he is still facing, and coming to this court where he doesn't know anyone, he doesn't have anyone on his side, and he still is trying to think the best of people, trying to do the right thing and behave in an ethical way. If you see the light doing weird stuff, my cat is playing with the blinds, so that hasn't changed. But this book just made me feel good, despite, like I said, there is some violence and some dark things going on in here, but it made me feel really positive throughout the whole book, and I was really rooting for the main character. I really liked it. If you're interested in, well, a book with a goblin for a main character, it's gonna kind of make you smile maybe throughout the book, I would say give it a try. I really enjoyed it. The world building was very involved. I have to admit, some of the names, it was difficult to keep everybody straight. Thankfully, there is like an index in the front of this book the author put in to try to help with a lot of terminology and names, because it is a lot of names that are like goblin names, and it was challenging. Like the elf names challenging, the goblin names challenging, the titles of everyone. There's different words for different concepts in, you know, the local languages for these people. So it was fun, but also this was somewhat of a challenge to read as far as keeping all those names and everything straight. So, but strongly recommend. I'll read it again for sure. And I do have the Broken Minding put out an edition of The Witness for the Dead, and it's a second book in there too that I have forgotten the name of. Anyway, I have that. I plan to read that. Really enjoyed it. I gave this 4 stars. And you know what? I just realized we skipped one, so let's talk about another 3.5 star book. But it's one that I liked a little bit more than, what was it? I just talked about it, The Christmas Appeal. So I read Everyone on This Train is a Suspect, and I read this as an ebook. It was very enjoyable. It's the sequel to Everyone in My Family Has Killed Someone. I really enjoyed the first book in that series. I read that earlier this year, I believe, and really enjoyed it. Thought it was fun. I love that kind of a mystery. What is it? It's, you know, like a locked room mystery. It was, there was so much of it that was meta, and which I love meta things. So this author knows how to write the kind of mystery that I'm going to be into. And so this sequel, I didn't feel that it was quite as good as the first book. I gave the first book 4 stars. I gave the sequel 3.5 stars because I didn't think it was quite as good. I wasn't really as invested in the characters in this one as I was in his first book, but it was still a really enjoyable mystery that he built up. And, you know, once again, like this time though, we're all on a train and we're trying to figure out who done it. I really enjoyed it. I would recommend this if you want a whodunit with some humor built in, and again, meta, because in this book, like, his main character is an author, and not only is an author, but is the author in world that wrote the first book and is now writing the second book as the mystery is unfolding. So if you like meta things and, you know, it doesn't take itself too seriously, I just thought it was really enjoyable. I would recommend this one. I know there's a third one, but it's got like a 25-week waiting list at my library, so I haven't been able to get that yet, but I am on the list for it. So I think it's like a Christmas themed mystery. It's like everyone at this Christmas has done something. You know what? We're in a time where I can just look it up online. So how about I do that? How about I do that instead of talking here and being like, I wonder what it's called. Oh, and aren't they doing a TV series of the first book? I think they are. So I will be reading that as well. Reading that? No, I'll be watching that. Jeez. Okay, we're getting there. We're getting there. Everyone this Christmas has a secret. Good Lord, that took long enough. Hope it was worth it for me to know what that title was. Anyway, I'm going to be reading that one when I finally get it. It's a Christmas themed book, I guess, but I'll be reading it probably sometime next summer. So be Christmas in July or whatever. All right. Next book that I read, this was a very enjoyable book. I read it. Well, I should show you. Okay, Tail Chaser Song. What is this one? I think, is this Grim Oak Press? Let me see. Let me see. Yes, this is the Grim Oak Press edition of Tail Chaser Song. Look at him. He's so cute. Look at little Tail Chaser. I read this book when I was a kid. I would say probably... I don't know, maybe around 5th grade or so. And I remember really enjoying it then. So I saw this special edition come out and I got it and I read through it and I really enjoyed it. It was, it's this little cat. He goes on an adventure to find his friend who is suddenly missing. There is some dark stuff in this book, okay? If you don't want to read some, I don't know, not all the animals make it out of this one alive, so I guess I'm just gonna leave that there, and if you're not into that, I don't blame you. I'm generally not into that either, but this was a great book. I really love Little Tail Chaser. He's just so darn cute, and I recommend it. The cat, he goes on an adventure. He has to save some animals from some very bad things that are happening. He explores the world where he's never been before because he's never really been out of his own little territory where he lives, but because he wants to try to find his friend, he ventures very far out into the world to learn about what might have happened to her. So he encounters new like tribes of animals and other tribes of cats. I guess tribe would be the best word, that he's never met before, and goes on this little quest type thing, right, to find his friend. And it was great. Like I said though, if you have a hard time with animals in situations where they might be in danger, maybe don't read this one. But Tad Williams, he's an excellent author. I actually am very excited because so I get the subscription to the Broken Binding every month. Thankfully they were awesome, and I got the invitation, I feel like it'd be like the end of last year maybe, to get their monthly subscription book. So right now they're doing Tad Williams, and you probably can't see it, maybe you can, the Dragon Bone Chair. So I'm excited to read that when I have all of them. There's going to be 4 of those because they split the last book up into 2. So once I have all of them, I plan to read them. As I've read, what did I read? Earlier this year, I read The War of the Flowers by Tad Williams. I really liked that one too. Okay. The last one that I read, this is a brick of a book, but it was so good. This was my top book of the month, 5 weeks, whatever. Words of Radiance by Brandon Sanderson. Yeah, it's a beast, but what else would we be expecting? I really enjoyed this one. I read The Way of Kings, I don't know, maybe a month ago, maybe October. I read it. I gave that one 4 stars. This one 4.5 stars. I really enjoyed this one. I shouldn't say all of the Easter eggs because I'm not that deep into the Cosmere yet. I think I maybe only like 30% of the way through my reading list for Brandon Sanderson that I have right now. But from what I do know so far, I found little Easter eggs in here that I really enjoyed. I really liked the switching perspectives that he does in this book. I feel like there's a unique enough voice for each character. I have to say there's one character I'm currently like not that interested in reading about. It's Shallan. Oh, we go through this all the time. At least I do. How to pronounce it. But you know what? Sanderson says he doesn't care how people pronounce the characters to his books. So he has given me permission to pronounce it Shallan. I don't hate reading from her perspective, but when I see it's her chapter, I'm I'm like, okay, I guess we're doing this. Kaladin, man, I know what a shocking opinion. He's my favorite character in this. I really love Kaladin. But I'm very excited to continue with this and actually see, because of the reading. I'm not going to talk further about this because it's a second book in a series, and like if you haven't read the first one, I don't want to do spoilers, so that's why I'm not like diving into this right now. It was a very enjoyable sequel. He really delivered on the second book in this series, and I am eager to continue reading and find out what happens, because he does such a good job at the ends of his books that are not the final installment in a series. He does such a good job at making you want to find out what happens next in the next book, and he did that in this one too. Also, the pacing in this one I thought was a lot. That's what it's probably the biggest reason that I rated this a 4.5, higher than The Way of Kings, because really liked the pacing better in this. I felt like the first one was pretty slow for probably the first like 800 pages of that book. But this one, I really didn't feel like that. I felt like it was solid all the way through, picked up at the end, in the way that he normally does. And it was just a very enjoyable read. I got through this one relatively fast. I don't know, it's a beast of a book. What is it, like 1,200 pages? No, it's not 1,200. It's like 1,050 or whatever. So I got through this relatively fast for its size and with how much I was working at the time. And so yeah, I will be continuing my reading, but my next reading for the Cosmere is going to be like 2 short stories. That's in Arcanum Unbounded, I believe. And then I think I'm going to be reading the first book in the Mistborn second series. I think that's the second, like the actual novel after these 2 short stories I'm gonna read, because I'm reading with one of the subs. I think it's the Cosmere sub on Reddit. It's either that or the Sanderson sub, but I think it's the Cosmere one. They give suggestions for reading orders, so I guess I could scoot back to the middle here. They give suggestions for different reading orders, so the one that I'm choosing is going to have me pause Stormlight Archive for now, and I think I'm going to be reading the first book in Mistborn Era 2. So that is actually on my agenda for like early next year, is to do that. I do want to try before the end of the year to get the 2 short stories read. That's on my list. What else is on my list? Well, I guess, you know what? Let's talk about what am I reading now and kind of like what's the plan before the end of the year. So let me take a look at my very handy spreadsheet here. I guess, I'll talk about what I'm reading right now, and then it kind of ties into like, I'm hoping to finish this by the end of the year. All right. So right now, after I DNF'd Feybound, I picked up another book that I am reading for my Reddit fantasy bingo. That's The City of Stardust. I'm not gonna get up and go grab it right now. And you know what? It's in like a book cover anyway, so you couldn't even see the cover. So I shouldn't have scooted so early. Here's the book, City of Stardust. I am maybe like 60 pages into this right now. I think it has potential. The rating on Goodreads is somewhat low. I don't normally take Goodreads ratings that seriously because I have seen some god-awful books that I thought were god-awful ranked fairly high. But that's kind of like, that's what gives me pause when I see a book on there that does not have a somewhat high rating. I'm like, ooh, how bad was this book that like even these people think that it's not good? So we'll see. I think it's fine so far. I think it's an interesting premise. This woman, she's kind of been living in isolation, and there's a woman who is been kind of hunting her family. I get the impression that she takes someone from their family from every generation. I don't know why yet, or what she's doing with them, but and I think it's gonna be like a portal fantasy to maybe like a fairy or elf world or something. But we haven't gotten that far. I'm like 50 to 60 pages in, I think, right now. So I'm gonna keep reading. I'm interested enough that I want to keep reading, which is great. And so I'll be finishing that. Hopefully within the next week. It's a pretty short book, and it's going pretty fast as I'm reading it. What else am I reading? The Harp of Kings, another bingo, Reddit fantasy bingo book that I'm reading. Try saying that 10 times fast, Jesus. But I'm reading that as an ebook. It's so far it's fine. It feels a little slow. It's this group works in kind of like a, I don't know, medieval CIA, like clandestine agency kind of a thing. I don't really know how to describe them, but they've been sent on this mission. Our main characters, they're trying to get in, like become formal members of this group. So as one of the things that's going to judge whether they can be members, they have to go on this mission and successfully complete it. I guess as part of determining whether they're going to be members of this guild or whatever. So they've been given like fake identities and a mission to go and find this missing harp that's needed for kind of, I don't know, apparently it's very important for this harp to be played at a coronation. I was gonna say inauguration, but I suppose it's a coronation when you're a king, right? So it's very important for this harp to be played at this coronation, but it's missing. So these people, like our main characters, have to find it while using their assumed identities. And I'm reading it because like the main characters, a couple of them are bards, and that's one of the bingo squares for Reddit bingo. I got something in my eye, so I really apologize. I'm over here like whatever. So I'm reading that. I don't know how I feel. It's going kind of slow. I believe it's a trilogy, and so this is the first book of a trilogy. So I'm willing to allow for some slowness on like the setup to see how it goes. It seems to be a really well-liked trilogy. So I'm open to seeing where this author leads me, but I feel like we're not really that far. What am I? I'm like, I think I'm about 30% of the way into the book, and I don't feel like that much has happened at this point. So we'll see where it goes. What else am I reading right now? Spellsinger. So Spellsinger actually has been, I'm not that far into this one either. I think I am maybe 10% into it. So somebody from, like a human from our world, one day just gets like suddenly transported to this magical alternate world reality where there's a bunch of animals that wear clothes and talk and have, you know, like the ability to think and reason, and you know that they're very human-like, but they're animals. So right now he's trying to figure out, well, he's just come to accept that this is all happening, and what am I gonna do? Because, you know, I prefer to live in my normal world on Earth. So not that deep into it, but I'm intrigued enough to know more. And it sounds like this might also be a bard series. If the name of the series, if it wasn't enough of a tip off, I believe that's where we're gonna end up going with this. I think there's like 8 books in this series or something like that. So we're starting. I'm intrigued enough where I'm happy to continue. Lyriel. Okay, so I read Sabriel, I believe, maybe either last year or earlier this year. I really enjoyed it, so I'm going to read the second book in that series, but I have not started that yet. I've got that checked out from the library, so it's going to be after I finish The Harp of Kings, then I'm going to read that. Okay, and then the 2 Sanderson stories that I'm planning to read is going to be Shadows for Silence in the Forest of Hell and Six of the Dusk. So those are basically, if I can finish all of these things by the end of the month, or you know what, at least some of these things, I will consider it a win. So that's where we're at. That's my current update for where I've been and where I'm at and where I'm going. So what I'm gonna do is I'll be making a video where I'm gonna talk about some of the books that I really liked the best this year, and then I'm gonna talk about I'm gonna do another video, I think, where I talk about more broadly the kinds of books that I read this year and what I thought about them. Overall, I think I had a pretty successful reading year. I'm starting to get like my next year of reading planned out. So yeah, that is all that I've got today. Thank you so much for coming back to my channel if you are a return viewer, or coming to my channel for the first time. If you're brand new, welcome. Hope you enjoyed my video. This was really fun, and I'm actually really looking forward to doing the next video, and frankly I'm probably going to do that very shortly after I end this one. So thank you so much. What have you been reading? Let me know if you've read any of the books that I talked about, or if you've read anything good recently. You know, what were your favorites in the month of November, or anything recent that you want to talk about? Let me know. Yeah, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your time. I say that professionally all the time. Thank you for your time. And I think it's just kind of like how I wrap stuff up now. So thank you for your time. Please remember to like this video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to my channel, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.